Hello, my name is Peter Cinnamon, and you're very welcome to a podcast which is all about the Irish League, where it's the turn of Larne to get a deep dive into their recently changed managerial situation. Tiernan Lynch has been lured away to the northwest and the bright lights of the Brandywell. We'll reflect on why he finally moved on from Inver Park. How will his successes be looked back upon in the years to come within Irish League circles? And what kind of job does newbie Nathan Rooney have on his hands as he takes over arguably the most talented and well-stocked team in the league? Stick the kettle on as your weekly edition of Kicking Match is on the way. Such a seismic move in the league requires a well-read scholar with the experience to back it up. It's a warm and welcome return to the podcast to the Irish League reporter and writer. It's Barry Flynn.
Good evening, Peter. Hope you're well.
I'm doing very well. I'm chilly. I'm frosty. But all things Irish League warm little cockles of my heart, as they do every week.
It was fantastic on Saturday because Friday night was an absolute nightmare. But by the time it got to 3 o'clock on Saturday, it was quite mild all over the Irish League. So strange November we live in. But I think the worst is ahead of us, Peter.
Very much so. I wrapped up with about 3 or 4 layers going to the Mid-Ulster Derby on Saturday, and then it felt a bit almost balmy, you know. So this is where we go ups and downs. Games are getting called off, but here we had plenty of games to talk about. But, you know, in the world of football, in the world of everything really, you talk about the number of 3. We haven't hit that yet. Buses coming at the same time and all that. We have that in Irish League land. It was Glenavon's managerial changes that was under the spotlight last week. Now it's time for Larne. It has finally happened. It broke just actually as the podcast was being uploaded. Now we get our chance to kind of work our way through it. Tiernan Lynch has moved on. He is now the man in charge of Derry City. I don't think there's any doubt, or it sounds hyperbolic to say that as we are currently recording, he is the greatest Larne manager of all time. The success that he's had, the revolution that he led, and for Derry, that's exactly what attracted them to him. A lot of people were surprised in the swiftness of Derry making their move, but it was clear that they had been looking at the project in Larne for a long time. And we can get into how much of a step up it might be or might not be. But Larne, for the first time in the Kenny Bruce era, were on the lookout for a manager. They have found that, and we will get on to Mr. Rooney. But talking about Tiernan Lynch, and when you talk about Tiernan Lynch, you also talk about his older brother Seamus. What a couple of years in charge of the Inver Reds.
Absolutely, Peter. I had watched, like we all had, the whole project coming together from when Tiernan was appointed. And eventually, that day last April when they lifted the title yet again, the unbridled joy that I saw on the pitch, it was the completion of that project, even though they did win it last year. But that project took time. And there were times whenever Larne were in the championship, things were not going 100% for them. So eventually they did get up and they did get to the 2 titles. But will Tiernan have that time at Derry City? Because it's a club crying out for success. And the manner in which Derry City collapsed this season, and they were in the running for, you know, a double right up until the last couple of weeks. And then if you watch the FAI Cup final, you could see that this was a team really and truly that there was lacking passion, lacking pride in the shirt. So Tiernan's coming in, he has a big job, and I think he knows the enormity of that job. However, it's a fan base up there that will be crying out for success. And it's going to be difficult because we saw the Shamrock Rovers factor. Some people are pointing to, was the Shamrock Rovers game the catalyst whenever Larne got duffed at Inver Park that made Tiernan think beyond Larne? Had he done as much as he could, brought the club as far as he could. But the fact is that, you know, you're talking about a club that has starved of success. They've won 2 League of Ireland titles, 1 Irish League in the 1960s, and Larne have won 2 Irish leagues. So in order to get Derry City up there beside the Bohemians and the Shamrock Rovers, it is a monumental task. And I don't think Tiernan would have taken that on unless he had ideas. But let's just factor into that. Will he have that spending power to go out? Obviously, he's been, promised that. But what is the length of time and the patience that the fans will give starting next February when the League of Ireland? He's plenty of time to make his mark running up to that. But to me, I was scratching my head. I just didn't put two and two together and see Tiernan at Derry City. But we are where we are, and it's going to be very interesting, Peter.
It's a real signal of how Derry City want to build their success, how they want to move forward, and they obviously looked at the Larne model and view that as a bastion of continuity, stability, most importantly, and I think that's why they went so quickly for the Lynch tandem, and they're going to give him time and they're going to give him investment. You saw a lot of the names that were linked to the Derry City job, and some of them sounded quite blockbuster and maybe sounded a bit more Hollywood in the terms of what League of Ireland football is, like the John O'Shea and maybe like Ian Barclough or something like that. And of course there was others. Lynch may have not as seen as sparkling or as dramatic as that, but I think Derry want to be a bit more, dare I say, boring with how they do things. They want to do it calmly, they want to do it sensibly, and that's from the bottom up. Not only did Tiernan Lynch be a success on the pitch in growing Larne, it was the whole system. He is an X's and O's man at heart, and Derry want to have that from the youth beyond. Larne's success was seen with the first team, but what was also starting to come through was all the younger players. It was that transition into how they ran their full-time setup. A lot of the talk around Larne, I think in media circles and with circles who are more interested in things off the pitch, highlight how well of a run they say club that Larne is, and the Lynch brothers were absolutely key to that, and I think Larne's next move that they've made, they want to keep that going. Derry want a piece of that. They want to be able to be selling on players in the way that Larne did, bringing through the youth that they have done, and the style of football that Lynch had was also attractive. It's effective. It got them through to Europe. It ticked all the boxes for Derry, and he probably did take Larne as far as he could go. Larne will want to keep on growing, but that will take time. And as much as Tiernan Lynch is still not 50 yet, he'll want to move up the game. And everybody has to take that. To be at the top end of football, you have to continually take these big steps. I think Derry is a big job. It's a different kind of pressure. It's moving on what could have been a job for life after what he's done in the past 2 years with Larne, and going into a job that has expectations, and he's coming in having the first thing in his inbox will be trying to retool this team. You've seen already in the Irish League the exodus out of Derry. They tried to build this team that would go for the league, and that simply didn't work this season. They missed out in the cup as well, so it's a minor reset, and they're going to give pretty much Tiernan Lynch the keys to the castle. So big job, and every Irish League fan, and particularly if you're a Larne one, I guess, you would keep an eye on Derry anyway. I think there'll be a keener eye, because we haven't seen this kind of backing of the Irish League. This in some ways is a backing of the success that the Irish League has had. A number of weeks ago we were talking about how, oh my goodness, maybe we're not doing as well as we think we are after that Shamrock Rovers results. Derry didn't see it that way. They're seeing as this man has been able to create a sustainable model in the Irish League, and we want part of that.
Yeah, you mean a lot of money went into that, and to create a community club within Larne, and it was from a top to bottom change, because I recall going to Inver Park in the dank, inglorious days. I remember Paul Miller was the manager there, and you wouldn't have got 200 people at it. He rejuvenated with Kenny Bruce the whole town, got them in on this plan, and brought them that success. But if you look at Derry, one of the key things about Derry City is if you're at the Brandywell lately, you'll notice that there's a new grandstand going behind the goal. which is a sign of the ambition that that club has, and they believe that they can have the supporter base. But Derry City, they're getting what 3,000-4,000 at their games for a town the size of Derry, particularly that part of Derry, the Brandywell Bogside area. It's the lifeblood of these people. When there's a game on a Friday night or whatever, the bars are packed and they've been talking about it all week, and you're going to get this level of scrutiny. Now, Derry people, they like a Derry guy, and I'm thinking, Paddy McLaughlin. I thought he might have been someone that might have went to Derry City, but Tiernan's coming in. He has this reputation. He's bringing his brother, who is like his right arm. I do recall one of the first games I covered in the championship when Larne were playing. There was this guy standing behind me with an earpiece in, and he was talking into the earpiece, and it was actually Tiernan's brother, Seamus, and he was observing the game from above and telling him what was going on. You go to Larne and you can see that it is an absolute, from the start to finish, he has a tactical know-how, had Tiernan Lynch, right down to the big water hoses going on to make sure the pitch is why they want to play their football before the game. It's that zipping ball, passing movement and whatever. He'll bring that to Derry on the 3G pitch up there. And if he can replicate that, Peter, fine and well. He's a shrewd operator. He knows, he's sat back and he's thought about this. He knows who he'll want to bring in. Obviously, Derry have says, yes, we can. He may go into the Irish League. He might go back to Larne and take some of the players up there, because it's like the Paddy McLaughlin model. When Paddy went to Cliftonville, he brought a lot of players from Derry and Institute down there. So he knows who will do a job for him. And he might just go back during the window and take a few guys out there. But there's no doubt about it, the Derry side that I saw in the cup final lacked passion, lacked heart, and it was frustrating to watch sitting in the house. But as a Derry City fan who travelled all the way to Dublin, you were screaming out, and you knew Higgins was gone because of that. That took a few days to get it done. But it was a surprise to me that Tiernan Lynch is going up there. He was the king of the castle in Larne, but maybe he's got that ambition to prove it on a different level. And maybe this whole European venture this season, which has impacted on Larne in the league, has made him say, I need a reset here. I need a new challenge. And Derry City is the sleeping giant that I want to go in now. It's going to be difficult. You're going to come up against some teams, your Bohemians, your St. Patrick's, Athletic, going down to Dublin. And in fact, one of the points made by Darren Murphy on Saturday was that what you don't appreciate in Northern Ireland when you play a game, within about 30 miles of Greater Belfast, that's your league. Says it's difficult going down to Cork, who have come up, going to Wexford, Waterford, all these places with teams. So it's going to be different challenges that are going to be set. And I think Tiernan's the guy, if they leave him to do this and give him the time and space to do it. But it's like everything. Somebody says 14 months is the average length that you get until you get sort of asked to move on. We'll try something else. But I sincerely hope it works out for him and Seamus.
And what he's being tasked to do is clear. It's trying to go and win that League of Ireland and repeat the cup success and see what he can do in Europe. What a legacy he leaves in being the man to first bring an Irish League club into the group league phase of a European competition, or a Senior 1 competition as we know today, winning the league 2 times in a row, ushering in this new full-time era that some teams in the league currently inhibit. It's hard to really define what his Irish League legacy is, and there may be other chapters in it. I don't believe he truly got the credit when he was Larne boss until maybe perhaps that getting over that European line. I think if a lot of Irish League fans were being honest, there was a view that this Larne team, with their money and their backing, were pretty much able to throw darts at players for free, and it was all playing with house money, and that they could invest and attract these players in, and it was like playing Football Manager except with a few cheat codes in there. And that's, as we've talked about in this podcast numerous times before, if it was that easy, I think it would have worked out at another club or two who have tried the checkbook approach and have not come up trumps. He was able to build a team from a middling championship team. The investment was there and get where they are. And maybe whatever happens next in Larne will help enrich what he did. But I think with time, he will be seen as what I believe he is and was an excellent team builder, a very savvy tactician, and actually very shrewd in the transfer market.
Yeah, because as I say, it did take a while for that championship thing to come together. He was there the day they won the championship, and you knew this was only the first step. It did take them a while to actually, settle within the Premier League, but when they actually got it right, they got it right. And of course, people are going to say, look, they had the money to go and get certain players and do this, but it takes a manager to mould that team. You get teams of individuals, but the way Larne were playing for a period last year, they just clicked every time they went out on the field, and they had what I would call the Lynch, the Lynch stamp on them, because he knew what he wanted to do. He knew how they wanted to play. Sometimes patience was a virtue for Larne, but they always seemed to get that 2-0, 3-0 victory at Inver Park. It was hard to go to Inver Park, but you compare that to this season, and you're saying to yourself, has Tiernan, what he has achieved in those two championships, has that been as far as he can take Larne? And that begs the question, can any other manager take them and emulate that and go any further? And you're wondering all about momentum, about the Larne momentum started about 6-7 years ago, and it built up and built up. And yes, they got to where they wanted to be, where Kenny Bruce wanted them to be. They got they got the championships. It was history made. It reinvigorated the town. But it's a case of what next? What next for Larne? What do you do? When's the next time you think Larne will get a crack at the championship or the European playoff spots? It took Tiernan Lynch a long time to do that. And I think this is going to be a sea change at Inver Park, because that era is over. And whoever, as we know, is taking on Nathan Rooney is taking that on. Give him time to mould that. But will the same I don't know. Will the same sort of passion be there among the fans? They've been there and they've seen it. And if Larne don't sort of continually remain that force in Irish League football, I'd hate to see Larne drop away to what they were. But look, he leaves Larne in a good place. The league form, not 100%, but he's walking away, and he knows what he's doing. But how Larne pick the pieces up from that as a club, as a community, will be interesting in the shorter and longer term, Peter.
It is a step up for him, isn't it? We talked a few weeks ago about how the League of Ireland is this bigger, more attended league, more high profile players, standards higher, wages perhaps more difficult to win. Some questioned why did he not just stay as a part of this Larne project. He's earned his spurs. He could craft this team. There's big money coming into the coffers with this European money. Why is he moving across the country when he could try and build what he's doing here and maybe get another crack at a St. Johnstone job? This is a step up.
Most definitely. And that's what surprised me, because of the talk about St. Johnstone 2 months ago. And I thought, because you don't know what was going on behind the scenes, maybe Tiernan was given a reinsurance or whatever, there was a better negotiation there. But if you think about Oran Kearney, he did a year at St. Mirren and he came back. I think you're going into the deep end if you go into Scotland. At least Derry City, you know what you're going to get. You're aware of the League of Ireland. You Derry's results and whatever Sports Sound every Saturday, and they're doing updates on what's going on up there, and Radio Foyle follows them, so you know the ins and outs of Derry. But I was very surprised, because of that talk about St. Johnstone, that so soon after that he left Larne, which sort of puts a question mark out there too, doesn't it? Which we'll never get to the bottom of. But I was thinking about the backroom team, and Gary Haver, an absolute gentleman, and it seems Gary's going to be staying on in some capacity in the backroom team. You can never write off what the knowledge that Gary has about local football and his involvement in moulding that side. Gary, manager himself, and that'll be the continuity that's there, because it's not a completely new broom. But as I say, so soon after the whole St Johnstone talk for Tiernan to decide, okay, let's try the League of Ireland. It's not as big a step up as maybe Scotland would be, but maybe that's ultimately a stepping stone for him if he wants to get that CV behind him. And if he can do a good job at Derry, if he can get them the league or get them the cup, which I think the supporters will be, that's what they'll want to see as a sign of success, is at least an FAI Cup. That's what he needs to be doing in the first season, because Rory Higgins, it was unforgiving, the talk in the background about the way that Derry just collapsed at the end. You wouldn't want Tiernan at the end of the season not to have a team that had been competitive and maybe did bring a piece of silverware, because they do crave it. You talk about 25,000 going to Dublin. It is a soccer city, no doubt about that. So he knows that. He knows what he wants to do. Whether he can do it is the big factor X.
With that departure meant the door was opened officially. The banners are up and it's time for Kenny Bruce Larne era 2.0. And in the week that we've had since it was swiftly announced that the Lynch duo were going up to the Maiden City, the next question to answer was who was going to fill the hot seat in Larne. Now, Larne weren't completely taken aback by this task. They had seen this possibility play out in front of them as Tiernan went very close to signing on the dotted line with St Johnstone, as it was reported. So they had somewhat thought about what they would do next. Now, a lot of the names that were being thrown about were within the league, which did make sense in that Larne want to continue what has worked. I talked last week about how when sometimes a manager doesn't work, you try and go for something else completely different, and we've seen that in Glenavon, and we've seen that in Carrick recently. Larne wasn't like that. Larne are thinking, actually, things are going pretty well right here, and if we can try and keep as much of the threads of this and just replace the cog, then everything else will hopefully make sense and we will continue forward progress. The key man that was in their sights looked to have been Rodney McAree, and you can see why that was a man that would be attractive to them. Similar, actually, age bracket to Tiernan Lynch, someone who had proven that he could build a team, strong Irish League knowledge, has had experience within a full-time setup at Glentoran, and as well as that, his focus on youth and his ability to develop youth. These are all the boxes that Roddy McAree ticks, and is exactly the type of thing that would matched up with Larne's agenda. You saw last week that their chairman said, stand back, hands off, pretty much. And I fully expected that to continue to heat up. There was suggestions that maybe Jared Little could be in the frame. Jim Gilton was put in there. There was also talk about the likes of Gareth McCauley or Andrew Waterworth, who are in the Northern Ireland youth setup. This could be their moment to move across into Irish League football. I think both those two are potentially going to be excellent coaches down the line. But everybody was taken slightly aback. It was a real left turn in regards to Irish League circles and where they went. And there was talk end of last week about a man, Nathan Rooney, from the Gibraltar League. And as we speak now, he's being confirmed as the manager. 35-year-old Englishman coming down to Antrim. And this is a very unique hire. But I will say, in this new era of European football for Larne, and something they will want to make a regular occurrence, this perhaps is not that. It's surprising to Irish League circles, but this is a more regular move in other leagues and teams of this ilk.
I think the irony is that he managed the Magpies in Gibraltar to put Derry City. That was a shock. Out of the Europe in July this year. So, there's always a bit of irony whenever you hire somebody. The guy's obviously a coach. 35 years of age. Tiernan was a coach. He had all that background in coaching. Nathan Rooney coming in is an outlier. It's one of those strange, where did that name come from? You could have went safe. You could have went, somewhere within the Irish League. David Jeffrey on Saturday in the Telegraph made a pitch for Tommy Wright um, to go into whatever. I thought maybe they might have gone for a bit of continuity for a while, thought it through. But Nathan Rooney has come in, and you can go and put him into Wikipedia. And the thing about it is, we all know his background. He was coach with Cologne, Bruno's Magpies, and now he's with Larne. But you bring in another coach who's obviously a superb coach to come into Larne. It's a culture thing, isn't it? It's, do you understand the Irish League? And I think if you're going to be a manager in the Irish League, you need to understand the psyche of our supporters, our rivalries, the way we play football. It was very evident watching Larne, as we have on many occasions. They were very well coached out in the field. Everybody knew their job, everybody knew. And sometimes that frustrated the fans because they stuck to this plan and there was a slow build up and the flair sometimes wasn't there. And he's going to come in and try and consolidate that. He has the players, he has the skill and the whatever the attributes that players need. But coming in from outside, it sounds all and well, Peter, but sometimes you do need that inside track about what you're taking on. What's the town of Larne like? What has Tiernan done? Understanding that part of East Antrim. And unless you have that grounding in Irish League football, it's going to take you a long time, in my view, to actually understand the task that's ahead of you. It's all right coaching, but managing that whole process. And as you know, this has been a bigger plan than just how they play tactically on a field. It's a whole community thing, a community reborn, a club reborn. So he's a big job in his hands, Nathan Rooney. And because he is sort of being parachuted in from outside, you're wondering what the fans are thinking. He will need to hit this ground running and show some sort of success, because Larne have a lot to do to prove it in the league. They go away for their European adventure this week. Okay, the European adventure hasn't been what they had anticipated, but we all know it'll take years for an Irish League club to actually be competitive there. At least Tiernan has brought that club there, and they've competed at that level. So Nathan Rooney, an unknown. And this is a strange place, because when he comes out on Saturday, it'll be like, who they'll all give him a warm round of applause, but how long will that sort of goodwill last? And I think it might have been a bit sort of, not premature, but it would have sat back and sort of assessed everything and says, look, who is the right player? We'll write this season off to an extent. We may not win the league or whatever, maybe try and get a cup, the Irish Cup, bring that back to Larne. But if this is a big project and he's only away a week, bring in something like Nathan Rooney, who has a good CV. Is it knee-jerk? I don't know. We'll only find out. But I still think the culture, Peter, is something you need to understand about this game that we all sort of watch and sort of love. And the little nuances out there, that going to Inver Park and things like that there, that, going to the Oval and understanding the support and understanding the gratification that supporters want. So give them time. But it's like everything. Do you get time if they go down 3-0 to Cliftonville or whatever? What will the fans be saying? And I know Mr. Bruce will be as loyal to Rooney as he was throughout all that period to Tiernan. So it'll take time, but our fans are, they're a hard taskmaster to have on your back.
Project's the key word here. I think it's pretty much the key answer to a lot of the questions. Why someone like this, someone from a Gibraltar League, someone who has no Irish League experience, someone who's 35, it's because the idea is that this man is the future. This man is going to come in and build this club. You almost flip reverse it. Why does he see Larne as an attractive option to uproot himself and come to Northern Ireland? This kind of move, I think, only happens because Larne are full-time, because they are double champions, because they got into Europe. And I wonder, are these type of questions or this sentiment that some people are talking about in regards to Rooney, are similar conversations happening in Derry going, why is this man coming from this league? Because we would like to believe that the Irish League is far superior than the Gibraltar League, and I don't think that is true based on what we've seen in European competitions. As you spoke earlier on, how this man's Bruno's Magpies took out Derry City, who would have been a better team from 1 to 11. The reason why, and let's reflect the sentiment of a lot of Irish League fans in regards to this move, they see this as slightly perplexing. And let's just say why. It's because something like this, the track record is not great. Like, has this worked? Who are the... It's happened before, but who are the random Scottish, English, non-Island of Ireland native coaches that have come into the Irish League, know nothing about it, and have been a success? There always has to be a first, especially in modern Irish League, but the track record ain't great.
I'm just looking at it. When they put Derry City out, they went out 8-1 on aggregate to Copenhagen, which was probably a reality check too. And I appreciate the point you make about the Gibraltar League. They seem to be taking players in and whatever. Like Gibraltar, compared to Northern Ireland, we like to sort of say, look, we have a better sort of setup and whatever here. He's 35. You can see that he has a good CV. Well, he's a CV, but he's coming in and he's young, obviously ambitious. But if he has that sort of ambition, how long is he going to sit with the Larne project before somebody from England says you can come, our sort of Conference League side or whatever? Because that is, it's incongruous, Peter, is the word I'm looking for. I don't see where it fits. And you're right about how often has somebody come from outside and come in. And over the years, we've always been, X goes, let's move Y across. He'll come and be the savior of that club. But yeah, I scratch my head. I saw it breaking on about last Thursday in the Telegraph that this person was going to be, Nathan was going to be appointed. And he's got a big job in front of him league-wise. Larne's European adventure has been a good sort of adventure for them. But I just have to wonder, how long-term a commitment will this be for Mr. Rooney at Larne? Is this maybe like just another step in his career, starting in Gibraltar, moving to Larne, and then is there a move to England in the offing at some stage? Because I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Has he bought into the project? Does he know this is going to be a legacy issue he's taking on and he needs to be taking them to the next step? Is he, as a coach, going to do that? And has he got the management style to do that? And you're not just going into any ordinary squad of players. This is Northern Ireland. This is Larne. We do things quite differently here. And he will sort of get his eyes opened, because we are, it's been unmerciful, some of the defeats that Larne has suffered, how he turns that team around, and how the Lynch factor, when that goes, will that knock the heart out of the whole project? So, yeah, Peter, to be truthful, it wasn't shocking. It was a completely curveball. It was a curveball, and it's going to be interesting, very, very interesting to see how this actually plays out. Will he win over the fans? Will he win over the players? Will he have the staying power to see this project to the next level? We'll see.
There is, out of 100, there's like 95 ways that this does. You can probably say this, ready, manager, probably about 95 ways fans could say this doesn't work out, and maybe 5 that you're like, wow, this could all come together. It's uncharted territory, and what you're saying in regards to a stepping stone, as much as it wouldn't be number one on his opening speech to the Larne fans, there's no doubt that's a part of it. He will see that Tiernan Lynch took this team, double winners, got into Europe, and then he's in the frame for a Scottish Premiership job, or now he's in a League of Ireland job. He would have to have that, and that's what they're saying to players. In the same way, as much as we don't see it that way at this level of club, if you are to be successful, people are going to come in and take your players, and they are going to take your managers. So what Larne, I think, know is that actually it's about keeping that structure and just trying to fit in the pieces that work together. I think Gary Haverin is absolutely key to this because he is your Irish League man. Great coach, knows the league, knows the players. He's been here through that entire journey over the past few years of winning the league and going into Europe. So he will be such an important general for Rooney. And actually, I think we were going to see this in January, and we saw this near the end of the transfer window in the summer. The type of players that Larne are looking at and the type of players that they'll want to bring in to take this team to a new level do not wholesale live and exist in the Irish League. So they are going to probably bring in more series and Todds and players like that. We've already seen it work with Andy Ryan. There is not a boatload of Andy Ryans sitting about across the league. They will need to have someone that can have the vision to play a bit of money ball, let's just say, at this level. Pick the players you can fit in and will use it as some sort of launch pad. So it's a completely clean slate here for him to come in and do this. And it's kind of exciting to see, but I do think this is going to be a tough year for him because he's going to have to come in, settle down. There's European football to finish out. How many of deals for January already coming in? He's going to have to get used to the league, used to the style of football, still try and give this league a go and try and win it. And they're still in with a shout with that. They've got a massive mountain to climb to do that, but that's still an ambition. And from there, what happens next? I think no matter how well the rest of the season goes, it could all go disaster. He's not here in September, but the idea will be in the same way that Lynch is going to Derry for a couple of years, Rooney will go, I'm coming here to try and develop this project. And none of us truly know, because he's been to so many different leagues and places, from the Northern Premier League to as a part of the coaching team and the Gibraltar national team. It's really hard to try and figure out how it's all going to come together. I think it's a risk, there's no doubt, but Larne probably don't see it as a risk. They probably see going for the quote-unquote obvious choice as a risk of not moving forward. They don't want to keep continuity. They want to keep building. And, in some aspects, you got to roll the dice. So a new era at Larne is very much in effect.
Yeah, I think January will be very important to see if he does act to bring in a number of players to try and freshen the Larne outfit up. Gary Haveren's role there in the background is going to be pivotal there. Gary's a wee bit shell-shocked, I'd imagine, because he's lost the two brothers, because they were there as, he came into Larne, to the project, whilst they were always constants there. I thought maybe they might have said to Gary, look, take this till the end of the season and then we'll have a look at it. We're coming up to Christmas. But a cold January in the Irish Cup for Mr. Rooney, Nathan Rooney, going away to, I don't know, Castlederg, Dergview, you name it. It'll be in your face. The fans will be in your face. It's a rude awakening, the Irish League. It's like no other league. That's why we love it. And it's sometimes it can be brutal. So look, let's see what happens. Gibraltar's a lovely sunny place, and they seem to have the resources to buy players and bring them into that league. January is pivotal for Larne. They may write off after the European adventure, say maybe reset after January, but he'll bring his own players in. Some players will have to go, of course, but yeah, he's a coach. He's coming in to the Irish League. I'm not 100% sure he's reached those heights with any of his previous ones, the Gibraltar national football team and things like that. Well, let's be realistic. We're talking about somewhere half the size of Rathlin Island, and it's going to be difficult. That's all I can say.
He will be somewhat emboldened by... I know Larne fans would really like their team to have won all their league games and be up there flying high, no injuries to be worried about, not be concerned about perhaps how does this team all fit together, etc., etc. But whoever was taking over from Lynch in the situation that they're in, regardless of results, could have been in a situation where it's like, don't change a good thing This might not be your crew, but it's worked pretty fine already, and don't wreck it. Actually, where Larne are going into January is that they do need a bit of work. They do need to change it up. So, in the sense that he is being given the opportunity, and as a part of the task to go, look, this squad needs freshened up. We're without who was our main player, Lee Bonus. We've had a few injuries, maybe a few players have started to wane, and you actually need to bring in players, not only replace what we had, but we need you to take the next step. So he's not caught in this battle between stick with what you have and try and push forward. The only thing he can do is try and push forward. So I wouldn't rip this team to shreds. I wouldn't bring it back to the studs, but a bit of redecorating is required. So that gives him a bit of leeway. It's hard to really tell what he's being sat down and told. Is he being said, I think it's give your best go at the league, but it is going to have to be a week to week. Is it going to be a massive disappointment if they don't? It's probably just how the project looks come the end of the season, isn't it?
We're not privy to what goes on behind the scenes. I don't think Kenny Bruce says, give it a go there and see what happens. He's obviously sat down and he sort of went A, B, C, D, and E. Let's look at the table. In an ideal world, if Larne win their 4 games, that they're having a hand, they'll be up to second in the table. They need to make Inver Park Fortress Inver yet again, because the statistics for the games that they've lost at Inver Park, and Peter, it all comes back to the same thing. We're talking about Larne here. If Manchester United cannot bring in a Messiah and need to bring in a new Messiah every 14 months, and obviously that has been discussed to death amongst supporters and amongst the board, bringing Nathan Rooney in to take on a Larne job, we've got the champions of the Irish League. And I'll go back to what I say, we're different. We do things differently. It's a wee bit in your face, the Irish League, and sometimes you come up against a skillful team, you come up against Cliftonville one week, you like to pass it, and then you come up and at them. So you need to be able to take that pressure and need to be able to cope with not only the silky skills of other teams, but also the in your face. And look, he said the right things to Kenny Bruce. Whether it's a difference between Kenny Bruce giving him time and the Larne fans giving him time, because they had 5-6 years of a roller coaster ride that has brought them to new heights. Is there room there for a hiatus? Is there room? Will they have the patience to say, look, give this another year? But after Christmas, if you get a few players in January, reinvigorate that attack, give Andy Ryan somebody up front, and the two of them could click. We were looking at, we discussed this a number of years ago when Glentoran were going great guns, had beaten Linfield 3-0 at Windsor Park, and we thought that was the league going to the Oval because they were so far in front, and the whole thing just collapsed, and Larne won the title. The thing is that if you make Inver Park that fortress again, they're getting those 3 points week in, week out. They're playing a certain style. They're winning 2-0, 2-1, 1-0. That's fine. And it let everybody else sort of, Linfield, get beaten by Glentoran on Friday. That's the type of thing. If everybody else is sort of nullifying everybody else, let Larne just work at it. But 2 or 3 defeats in the opening number of games will just put a different complexion on this. And it won't be long before, if you're put into a job and nobody knows who you are and you've come from outside, and I talk through experience working in places throughout the last decades, they give you a very short time to blend in. And it's hard sometimes for people to come in and get that goodwill. It's how deep is this Tiernan thing and Seamus thing? How much of an impact has that had behind the scenes in Larne? Because the continuity's gone. And now you're going to have to get someone to come in. I'm the boss. We'll do it this way. It's going to be interesting, Peter.
I know that what they'll really say, and they'll never not say this, is that they wish Larne all the best and they'll want them to do well. I'm talking about the Lynches. But surely a part of them wants them to just slightly struggle. To see how it goes, and then, find their way and go, it was harder than it looks, boys. But look, this is a really interesting and unique signing. Not something that was on my bingo card at the start of the season, or even at the start of last week. So welcome, Mr. Rooney. Let's see how this train ride goes. If the weekend was to start as best as possible from a Larne point of view, what happened on Friday night would probably be high on their bingo card. Glentoran do it again. Linfield are starting to make a bit of habit out of this. Glens win out in the Bell Classico. It was hardly a stunning game in itself, but the men from East Belfast get the job done. A mere blip, another blip for Linfield, or is this a concerning loss that they aren't able to get over the hump again in a big time game?
Well, they've lost 4 times this season, twice to Glentoran. The Boxing Day game is going to be very interesting. Back to the Oval, big crowd. Will it be a 3-timer? Declan Devine, if he keeps beating Linfield, I think the Glens fans will give him as long as he wants in that job. But I watched the game on Friday night, and Linfield had that. They didn't click. They just didn't click. Glentoran seemed to want it more. The hunger was there. David Healy was being interviewed before the game, and the point was made, were you thinking about the defeat at Windsor Park? No, it didn't cross my mind. And then it was pointed out, commentary, Thomas was speaking, says, that was definitely on the build up to that game. I don't want to go here and lose. You know what happened? This is a big game. And of course, Marcus Kane gets the goal. And Linfield just didn't seem to be able to up it that significant amount in the second half. I know the sending off and things like that there, but the way and the manner in which Glentoran won that, if you'd have actually turned on at the very end, if you'd been out late, you'd have thought Glentoran had won the European Cup, the celebrations that were on the field. And I was speaking to Glentoran fans on Saturday who were at the Welders, and they seem to think that, Declan Devine is going to be there for the long run, because he says, who else is out there will take it. So that seems to be the thing with Glentoran. We'll get those little wins against Linfield, and it'll keep the fans happy. But I mean, 27 points, and they're fifth in the table, just behind Portadown. It's interesting for Glentoran. They'll not win the league, of course, this season, but when you talk about Linfield, there is an Achilles heel there, and I don't know whether it's in defence or whether there's just that lack of belief, whether it was the fact that we're playing Glentoran. But there's going to be difficult games for Linfield going forward. They're going to get down, it's no easy games. I remember when Linfield had a great start to the season, but Portadown, with their fantastic staying power, got that draw in time added on. To me, that showed a little chink in the armour of Linfield, is that they're not 100% belief. You look at the Linfield teams under David Jeffrey, they just had that professionalism. They'd have went to the Oval and seen out a 0-0 draw rather than lose by a 0-0. That's the difference. And I'd say the dressing room on Friday evening after that game, there'd been a few sort of words spoken about commitment and playing for the blue shirt. So Glentoran, their fans will be riding off into the sunset.
Those celebrations and the veracity of them, it's something I think alludes to what is happening in this situation. Glentoran really match the energy in these games against Linfield. This is a team who see Linfield as the big team that they are. Every week the Blues have to go into the game knowing that the other team sees this as their somewhat cup final, will defend a bit deeper, will be playing a lot more cautious football. And that has been true for Glentoran, and they've sat back, tried to play more defensive football and catch them on the counter. And in this game, what Glentoran wanted to do was get the goal, which they do on 45, and then sit back and try and make it difficult, because Linfield were not being able to spread balls out wide and find all this space behind the back line. They were stuck trying to thread balls, get through this deep block of green shirts. Glentoran are a fairly physical team. a lot of their fans have criticised maybe their attacking flair, their ability to move the ball out wide and break down teams. But Glentoran don't need to worry about that when they're playing against Linfield. They want to do their own snatch and grab. And it's just the reality of Glentoran's situation that they are not a team 1 to 11 that will match Linfield. So they have to have a different outlook. And it's just worked in their favour. 27 points in the league, 6 of them are against Linfield. And you compare this game at the Oval compared to what happened against Portadown. They weren't going to sit back in the same way against Portadown. Well, they didn't get the goal early like they did against Linfield. And in that game, Portadown actually were able to add, well, I think Portadown have more direct players than Linfield, but they were able to get that space and find Glentoran out. But let's also give a bit of love to, I think, the best goalkeeper in this league, GLI. He's big. He's able to snatch the ball out of the air, firm hands, and what really makes him a level above compared to any other keeper in the league is that he makes big time saves in big moments, and he was required to do just that. Jamie Douglas is young, slightly naive, and getting sent off with over half an hour still to be played. I'm sure many Glen men had their head in their hands thinking, oh, not the right thing to do, young starlet. But they stood resolute and made that decision to play defensive football very much a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'd imagine people leaving the Oval going up Mersey Street, I'd say the conversation would have been, why can't they do that week in, week out? Why do we have to, only produce that against Linfield, go to Dungannon next week, get beat 2-0? And that's where the question mark comes in. But if Glentoran can do that every week, the fans will be at that Oval packing it out, but you have to take your hat on for the gutsiness, the way that Glentoran played. And the other thing that I noticed too was the goal came from the very fact that there was no niceties about it. Corner, straight in, bang, you get the opportunity and Kane finishes from about 2 yards out. That's sometimes the way it needs to be done in a big 2 game. No nonsense, no nice things, just get the ball in there. If it breaks in the box, stick it in the net, and that's what Kane did. The hunger was there, the passion was there, the commitment was there from Glentoran. But let's just see how they back that up in the following week. But for Linfield, it'll put those doubts in the Linfield psyche. Two defeats against Glentoran. Now, the manner in which the first game was horrendous for Linfield. I know Chris Shields was coming back from injury, but he lost the ball for the third goal. But then when Glentoran got their teeth into the game on Friday evening, the second half, okay, they lost the player. But you, as a man, as a team, they played the way Divine wanted them to play. Put their shirts on the line, their bodies on the line, worked their socks off, and the manner in which they celebrated at the end was that there was a lot at stake and they stepped up to the mark. And the Oval, Peter, with that big grandstand just above where the management and the coach are, the noise just comes off that. And I'd imagine when that final whistle went, the reason why they were so exuberant was the fact that the noise coming off that grandstand, that was relief, and it was also well done. Let's now move this on and back it up, is what the Glentoran fans are saying.
Yeah, the equivalent of can you do it on a cold night, Tuesday night in Stoke, is kind of can you win away to Carrick Rangers, which I think they have already. But yes, that's the equivalent. They need to be doing this more, and ultimately I think it's a tactical thing for Glentoran, and it's a team building point of view that perhaps they're built for these bigger games. Can they do it against other sides? Linfield, I mean, it highlights their weakness, and that is that outside of Joel Cooper, they do not have this dynamic threat. And when they're put in a position where the other team is happy to have 10 men behind the ball defending, who is going to be that spark? I think we've seen the odd time maybe Charlie Allen do that, but it's kind of the Cooper show. And the fear I would have if I'm a Linfield fan going forward is not this potentially impending Larne-shaped doom train that's chasing you. It's that if Linfield do not score the first goal, are you going to see this game repeated? We saw it almost actually against Carrick Rangers a number of weeks ago, And I think this team need to get their lead and kill teams off, because they are not as stout defensively as they have been in previous, and they don't have the kind of players that is able to break down these teams. So that's the challenge I guess the Blues have always had, and they'll want to put this as maybe the Glens are just their bogey team. It's a team they don't want to be their bogey team, and it's interesting that they will be playing all their pre-split games against them before Auld Lang Syne. Another derby which will have 3 runabouts before Auld Lang Syne is the Mid-Ulster one. What an atmosphere at Shamrock Park, probably aided in the fact that there was a number of games called off in the local area. In junior football across the board, not this impacted the fans going there, but we may have said that Larne and Ballymena didn't get through the weather drama. That'll be frustrating for Larne, because I'm sure the last thing they want is more games to be thrown onto the pile. But a big raucous atmosphere went down there with a couple of Around the Grounds boys, and Portadown kind of do what they do, take their chances when they can and stay resilient at the back. Much improved side, I believe, from what I saw from Glenavon. Still don't have that player at the top end of the pitch that can make it stick, beat a defender, and get the goals when they needed it. They had a lot of the possession, but did not a huge amount with it. And the Ports are efficient. They are officially the form side at the minute. They're top of the table. 4 wins out of their last 5, and that one late draw. They look excellent. They look direct. They've got all these big games coming their way. But they're the one team that you do not want to face is the Ports, because they can hold on to the back and snap you on the counter.
Well, one of the things about Portadown is, come next May, that Irish Cup might be one of the things that Niall, you're looking at as a cup team. I think they could transfer that, that league form into the, the cup. And that wouldn't be beyond them, as my view, as an Irish Cup run. Niall talked in the paper today about the atmosphere, and I must pay tribute to Portadown and Glenavon, because on Twitter and on the social media, they pushed this game. You had 90% of tickets now sold for the Portadown end, whatever, right up until, say, 10-3 on Saturday. And Niall mentions when he walked out and the reception and the noise that came off that stand, they experienced it last year when they won the league down at Shamrock Park. And that all makes for the atmosphere and the old rivalry of Glenavon and Portadown. Niall got the better, a baptism of absolute fire for Paddy McLaughlin to come in there. He took charge in the Mid-Ulster Cup during the week. They were defeated there. And this was a rude awakening to actually go into an atmosphere like that and know the passion that exists within those, within that. We talk about this Mid-Ulster area, which is the hotbed of football in my view at this stage, and passion for football. They talk about Belfast, but you look at the teams in and around Portadown, and Paddy will go away from that game with plenty to think about. But Niall's a lovely guy. He's a good guy, and it was a special day to win the Mid-Ulster Derby for Portadown. He lives and bleeds Portadown, and as a boy standing in the early 90s, or as a young man in the early 90s, watching that great Portadown side, that packed, Shamrock Park week in, week out. He knows that's where he wants to emulate Ronnie McFall. And this project that he inherited as a local boy, that's the games that he wants to see. That's the passion he wants to see. And we're talking about a club here with a legacy that he wants to emulate. And days like Saturday, you were at the game, and it must have been almost like the good times back at Shamrock Park. But what he has done with that side since he's brought them in, they're sitting now 4th place in the table. That's a mark of Niall. Niall's coach, he's a motivator. He'd put an arm around a player. I think he'd ball you out just as quickly as well. But he is Niall Curry. He's the enigma with the experience and the love of that club. And he has taken them to exceptional heights for a club that just came up last season, and it's positive.
There was an excitement around the home end of Shamrock Park that I don't see in a lot of other Irish League grounds currently, and there are fan base who have had their rough couple of years, as has been well documented. This must be one of their best seasons. I appreciate we're only 17 games in, but when it comes to just week to week results, they could all fall down. But this is shaping up to be perhaps their best season post Ronnie McFall. There's great atmosphere, lots of young fans. A couple of Portadown fans told me how much they think I've been a wee bit harsh on them this season. I will give you your flowers now. 28 points after 17 games. I think, well, they're 1 point above Ballymena, played exactly the same amount of games, so that shows you all the kudos that Ballymena was getting. Ports have got better results than them. You've got Dungannon played one more game more than them on 29 points. You have this unique trio of the Swifts, Portadown and Ballymena, who are trying to disrupt the top six. I think, I mean, Portadown are like 3 or 2 wins away from pretty much being safe based on other metrics. I think if Portadown fans will still have that in the back of their mind, but where can this Portadown side go? Their next few games are Linfield away. Is it Coleraine away? They've got Cliftonville at home, and then they play Crusaders, and then it's back to the Mid-Ulster Derby. That is a baptism of fire. I think once they get through those games, yes, it'll be another 4 fixtures or whatever, but that will really show what this team is made of. They are a very different team. I think you can only see the likes of Chapman and maybe Thompson and McCall and Mays that stuck around from their championship side last season. But the results don't lie, and I think the eye test doesn't lie. They're quite good at the back, you know.
Mm-hmm. I think if I was David Healy, I'd be more panicked about Portadown, facing Portadown, and Niall Curry will be relishing the thoughts of having a crack at Linfield, because nothing succeeds like success. To have those, like a hard victory on Saturday under your belt, and also the feel good factor that creates. He'll tell that team going out on Saturday, you fear nobody. We come up here, the table does not lie. We're sitting 4th in the table by merit. We've got it through hard work, digging out results. And they will say, Linfield, they're coming off a defeat. They might have a wee bit of a question mark on their players going into that game, but Niall will be relishing the fact that they've got the Blues up next. And David will be thinking a wee bit deeper about the prospect that's in front of him. And I mean, fair play. Great to see. I was listening in on Saturday, and Mid-Ulster Derby, doesn't matter if the two of them are at the bottom of the table, it means a lot, bragging rights. And it's a case of you'll not be able to turn a sweet in your mouth on Boxing Day. It's at Mornview, yeah?
Yes, it will be.
Well, that'll be another cracker. And where can Portadown go? You look last year, and Loughgall had that bounce effect when they came up, and they were an unknown proposition for a number of clubs, and they did well. Portadown have done well, I think, on the very fact that they're a good team. They believe. Niall's got the project. Niall's a motivator, and Niall sends them out there. They will fear nobody going forward. And I saw it last year in the championship. They had those moments of despair when they were going down to Ballymallard and getting well beaten, but now he seems to have got this team playing for him at the higher level, and no team in the Irish League now would sort of look at Portadown and think that's going to be an easy day, especially down at Shamrock Park. It's when that crowd get behind you from that stand, those Portadown, the hairs on the back of their necks must be sticking up, and that's not something that just originated from nowhere. That's Niall pushing that envelope further and further, and fair play to him.
Word on Glenavon, it's really hard to say too much about them. As I said, I think they looked brighter, but this is a team that needs a bit of reworking, and McLaughlin can do so much on the training ground to get something out of this side, but he will want January to come like yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Paddy likes to play a certain brand of football. We saw it with Institute. They play the ball on the ground. They're a good passing side. They're well coached. Cliftonville were the same. You see Cliftonville today. Jim plays that well. That it's a patient game from the back. You're going to Mornview Park. It's a heavy surface. You're inheriting a team that are down in the dumps. His number one aim is to avoid relegation. That's what the board are saying. Let's just get out of that nightmare scenario where we're sitting now. We're level with Carrick Rangers. Loughgall are behind us. We want to get out of that. We don't need that for a club like Glenavon. The prospect of going into the championship would be an absolute nightmare for Lurgan. So that's aim number one. Anything else that comes out of that, I think January is going to be key, because every other club, Carrick could bring in players under Stephen Baxter. Loughgall might get a couple of guys coming through. So they don't want to be in that position. And to lose that game 1-0, I think it's more of a statement of where Portadown are compared to Glenavon. Glenavon have been in the doldrums. You just have to look at the games on the TV. You can see the crowds are dwindling there at Mourneview Park. And again, it's a club starved of success. Paddy's got a difficult job coming in there. And, Stephen McDonald was an excellent coach. He worked wonders at Warren Point. But it definitely needs a refresh in the dressing room. And interesting to see what resources he'll have. But stop the rot is the main thing, Peter, in my view.
We'll dip into Sunday, and this was a very surprising result for me. I don't think it's a shocker in Irish League terms, but I really did think, after seeing Coleraine look so fluid against Loughgall the weekend before, they were kind of outdone by Crusaders. Crusaders just were the more wily, the more impactful, the more effective. They got their 2 early goals, and Coleraine looked shell-shocked.
Yeah, it's an interesting one at the showgrounds because, Colerane's position in the table, it's not exactly what the plan was. In my view, I was there the night that the announcement was made that they had been taken over, and it was the night that they played Linfield off the park. They won 3-0. They were getting great crowds at the showgrounds, 3,500. They were right up there. And it's another thing that's going to take time. Dean Shields has inherited this team, but results like that, where Crusaders go up and they smash and grab to get the 2 goals, and then it's catch-up time for Coleraine. It's a legacy far removed from the team and the side under Oran Kearney that were vying for the league title 2-3 years ago. So yeah, it was an interesting result. Declan Cadell has got Crusaders playing in a certain way. They're always dangerous, the hatchet men, but they went up there. They had a game plan. They played it. They got the goals. And Coleraine, it was a strange result, but I think it's part of what the Coleraine season is, a bit of underachieving consistently, and that is personified in where they are in the table. But where does that leave this whole project at this stage? We cannot sort of conclude and have a look at Coleraine until the end of the season, but their form so far, Peter, has been less than enamouring, and they have 7 wins and 7 losses and 4 draws so far this season. Is mediocre in anybody's book. So fair play to Declan Cadell. They're just above them, but he had a hard task taking over the absolute legacy left by Stephen Baxter. And it was a noteworthy win. It was a statement win by Crusaders to evenly match sides and to come away with 3 points. I think it says more about Declan Cadell's plans and his management style for his first season, but also puts a wee question mark over Colerane's project. And we were sort of suggesting, considering that it was going to go from bigger and better with Oran moving upstairs. But maybe it is a period of rebuilding, and we will see how it goes. But it must be disappointing for fans of the Bandsiders to actually see a side that is, it's not as inconsistent. It is inconsistent and is mediocre, because the table just tells us that.
Concentration-wise, Jordan Shirt should not be winning a header in the box from a corner and have the ability to direct it in that way. I actually appreciate he low-key has this in his locker, but a man of his stature coming in and winning the ball and having the fight to get that's I imagine it would be a very disappointing thing to see if you're on the Coleraine bench. I'm sure it will not look good in film room this week. And then individual errors will happen, but it just felt like in a game where that first goal already happened. The way Offord was able to put the pressure on,
Yeah,
capitalize on the ball. He has this in him, doesn't he? He's a harrier. He has just that.
I think he's been the signing of the season. I've seen him in action a few times, and he gives that. He just gives that wee extra edge to that Crusaders attack. Going forward with the ball, he is a skillful player. He's a fast player, and Kieran Offord has been a great addition. And of course, Stuart, of course, as you know, always had that in his locker. I remember as a 17-year-old, I was sitting behind him, was watching him playing for Glentoran against Ballinamullard, and it was that famous goal that brought him into the old, made him into the young star that he was. And the ball dropped about 35 yards away from the Mallards' goal. And there was a Glentoran fan behind me. He says, "For God's sake, pass it." And next thing, he went, "Pass it." Next thing, whoa! He burst the net from 35 yards. And that was precocious talent from him. The winner header to score a goal. You know, you'll be questioning Colerane's sort of defending at that. But hey, Crusaders are when you have some of the players and you look at the Crusaders players who they have in, you know, and of course Tuffy at the back. I think it's a lot of Coleraine fans would have been heading down the Ballycastle Road on Sunday going, it's not clicking, is it? It's not really coming together. And Crusaders went away with the 3 points back to Belfast, and that's been an all too common occurrence for the Bandsiders this season. So yeah, it needs a wee bit of work.
Well, perhaps there hasn't been consistency in big areas at the back. The one thing they're lucky that they're able to rely on, and he couldn't totally drag them towards a result on Sunday as much as he tried. Shevlin just gets the goals for them. Korean fans will think we're wasting the season from him in the way that we're letting things in at the back.
Shevlin, he hit the bar as well. So you've got that battling, bustling sort of forward up there, but it wasn't sufficient. It wasn't enough on the day. And, you know, maybe in the transfer window, there might be a little more balance brought into, you know, that attacking edge for Coleraine. But as I say, very disappointing for the Bandsiders. A Sunday game, you turn up and the next thing you're 2 goals down. And you know, football fans are football fans. They're going to criticize. They're going to say this is wrong, that's wrong, and that's something that Dean Shields and his background team will have to sit down and assess. As I say, mediocre season, winning the same amount of games as you've lost is not in the project Coleraine for this season. So it'll be reset and re-go. Maybe the transfer window will offer that. But Ballymena against Coleraine on Boxing Day has always been a measuring stick for where the two sides are. And there'll be nothing as disappointing for Bandsiders fans if the Sky Blues get one over them on Boxing Day, which would only add to that sense of mediocre that probably the fans see this side as. And you know, there could be a few sort of, it'll be an interesting one for Coleraine. Crusaders, you know, are always Crusaders. They're always capable of that. And I think, you know, this season they're going to be, you know, very safe. And then Declan can take that to the next level. It took Stephen Baxter a while, and Declan is just blending his way in, and it seems to be going, you know, swimmingly at this stage.
It's going pretty swimmingly for Joe Gormley. Another game, another hat trick. Has he got like he must have a room in his house that is just for hat trick balls. That he keeps them all in there because I mean the man has scored more than most people have goals for Cliftonville in their entire history. I mean
17, 17 hat tricks in a career. You know, it's great on paper. We were discussing on Sports Sound on Saturday, Joe may have lost a yard of pace. He may not last the full 90 plus minutes, but he's getting those goals, which begs the question, what happens if Joe retires? What happens if he gets injured? Where do those goals come from for Cliftonville? It's you know, 3 goals on Saturday. Maybe you were listening in, and Michael Hammond threw over to Keevine, and he says, "Don't tell me Joe the goal scored again." He says, "Yes, he's got his hat trick." And Michael was only saying that out of the blue, and of course Joe got his hat trick. And you saw the goals on TV, typical poachers goals. Joe picking his spot, putting the ball in the net. But the bigger question for Cliftonville is, what happens if you take Joe Gormley out of that side. He was only a bit player in the cup final. He didn't get on. But now in this season, he's proving himself to be, the goal scorer. But longer term, Peter, where is that replacement for Cliftonville? A young 15-year-old came on Saturday and set him up.
Mm-hmm.
Corin Madden, fair play to him, 15 years of age, and he did get a lot of accolades out of that. But that's the juxtaposition. Joe's 34 and a 15-year-old. You'd love Joe at 15 coming into that Cliftonville side and he had a whole career in front of him. But where does the longer term? Cliftonville did lose a lot of players, over the summer, and you're taking a X and Y out of that team. But Jim will know that they need to get a goal scorer in, and maybe that's another thing for the January window. But who is out there that they could get?
Joe Gormley, 34. Actually, he'll be 35 by the time all you guys are listening to this. And I would say a lot of fans were perhaps talking about this tail end, and is it this season? Is it the next? How long will he go? And this season, he's played with such fire and he's played with such physicality. I'm actually going the other way on this. I wonder, do we have some type of, and this is big boots to fill, but because he actually is underrated, quite a tall player, could he have a Glenn Ferguson-esque end his career where he just keeps scoring and being the main man, and you keep thinking, well, this can't last, and all of a sudden you've got another 2-3 years. Look at the way Mulgrew has continued to play. It isn't usually a thing you would see from a striker, and for Gormley, a lot of his goals and his game was rushing onto the ball. But in the past 2 seasons in particular, I've seen such exquisite finishing from Joe Gormley. That's the hardest part. If he can try maybe
goal, Peter, he actually, I don't know how he did it with his boot. He lobbed the keeper, and it was into the corner net. And the way he actually connected was strange. It's like something you'd only see once in 20 years. Somebody able to actually do that piece of skill. He's got that finisher's instinct. And that was just personified with that goal on Saturday. Spike Ferguson, you mentioned. I remember Spike going to Distillery. He didn't have that yard, but he was in the right place at the right time. He just knew instinctively. Joe has that in spades, but he also has that finishing ability. When he breaks through a defence, but keeper coming out, what he did on Saturday was, you couldn't teach that. You couldn't teach that.
Part of me now thinks I will not be surprised. So I'm still talking about Joe Gormley. Might not be nailed on start every week, but he could still be playing Irish League football in 2-3 years. You just don't know, or you'll all call it a day at the end of the season. We'll just have to see. Look, Glenn Ferguson was still playing Irish League football at 40 for Linfield, so things have moved on. Games got a bit faster, but I just thought I was so impressed by the nature of his goals against the worst team in the league. Let's be fair, and I don't think they were expected to get points, but it was a semi-empty looking bench that Loughgall had there. Their player of the season last year, Andrew Hoy, will be on the move based on the fact that he's on the transfer list. It's going from bad to worse all the time. A thumping at Cliftonville wouldn't be as much of a surprise, but they're just not in these games. That's 2 hidings in a row.
Yeah, lazy thinking, we can cliche it and say second season syndrome up there. They don't get that bounce. But I watched them against Linfield. And we were talking about Linfield being a team, I think, that plays in confidence with Joel Cooper leading. He hit the net early on in that game, and Linfield just kicked on from that. But yeah, Loughgall seem to have lost that way this season. You don't expect him to go to Solitude and to eke out a draw or anything like that. You knew that was going to be a run-of-the-mill game, and Cliftonville were going to run out 4-0 winners in the end. And that's just where Loughgall are at. And you look at the table and you see they're beginning to lose ground on Glenavon and Carrick Rangers. That's going to be, in my view, that'll be that battle there to see who gets into that playoff spot. Loughgall, to me, I can't see how they're going to come back from this. Do they have the resources? There was that great feel-good factor, the smallest sort of village in Europe, getting into a top flight. First season bounced great, but that was just expected on Saturday, and Clifton fell, ran out winners with 35-year-old Joe Gormley leading the attack. And you wonder, is the lock all sort of good news bounce story? Has it sort of had its course at this stage?
It was a game short on quality, short on goals, but it delivered the points for Swifts when they needed it. This was a kind of an interesting battle of the speed and the pace and the energy of Dungannon Swifts against the big bruising fortitude of Carrick Rangers, and it takes kind of a squeaky goal to give the Swifts the points. They don't care. They're in third and continue to tick along nicely.
Yeah, James Knowles with the goal, and I think after the game he says, "Look, we don't take heed of the table at this time. We'll be worrying about come April time where we're at." But this is nosebleed time for Dungannon, because last season I thought they were going to be in a relegation battle. Rodney comes back in, and they've always been a club and a side that have produced from within and have always been a match for anybody. That was a difficult proposition. Stephen Baxter, the feel-good factor again at Carrick Rangers, but they went up, they did the job, they got the 3 points. Rodney will be pleased with that, and hard place to go, especially a team like, it was, a team that's battling for not their existence in the league, but they needed Dungannon to come up and they needed to get a win. And Stephen did get that initial bounce with the Rangers, but when you get these games like Dungannon Swifts coming up and winning, it gets down to that thing coming into the next part of the season, of coming up towards the end. Carrick will need to be beating Loughgall. Carrick will need to be beating the teams around them in order for that survival, because it then becomes a mini league. But Dungannon, where they're at this point, and I've noticed going down to Stanmore, the crowds are getting bigger. Dungannon are getting their own fan base where they didn't, and you can see there's a couple of hundred newbies coming there. People are buying into this club, and third place is where nobody would have expected it, but under a man who bleeds blue, Dungannon blue, Rodney McAree. He's got them playing the Rodney way. He's got the know-how, and they're playing for him. So I wasn't surprised to see that result, but the table, what rating that makes for Dungannon as a club, and it's perfect, fantastic, and well done.
It would be amiss of me not to ponder your take on All Matters Championship, as you are very much the front man of that coverage-wise, Mr. Flynn. I don't really know if there's a huge amount to say. It doesn't look as though we're going to have the tight little race that we had last season. This is starting to look like bangers to lose.
Yes, I was at the Welders game on Saturday. Big crowd, great atmosphere. Bangor come out the other end, 1-0, goal by Ben Arthurs. You have Arthurs and Matthew Ferguson. In any champ or Premiership club, they would be fantastic up front. Two big guys putting the goals away. They're head and shoulders, in my view, above anyone else in the Championship this season. They have that belief. They're a big club. They're going to go back up there. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They're playing the way that Lee Feeney wants them to play. The problem is that none of the other clubs, the Welders, Dundela, Limavady, fair play to them, they've come up. They can't get a run together. Limavady lost on Friday night, and the Welders went to Armagh the previous week and lost 3-0. Do you know this thing about they're all capable of beating each other? Well, that's what they're doing. But the problem is Bangor are just winning.
Has beaten everybody. Yeah.
And
they've got that 12-point gap over Dundela and Limavady, who are in second and third on 28 points. That's very impressive.
Do you remember the classic used to say about David Jeffrey, OBE, when he managed Enfield, over by Easter? Well, I think the Championship could be over well before Easter, because the other clubs just can't get that consistency. The only thing I would look out for is that sort of playoff place, and I think it could be an East Belfast sort of thing between the Welders and Dundela. And funny, last year the Welders are very smart, as are Dundela. They will not play their Boxing Day game until the day after Boxing Day, which means you've got a football extravaganza in the east of the city. You'll have Glentoran and Linfield at the Oval, But then Dundela are playing the Welders at the Hen Run, Inver Park. Now, last year they had 1,800 people at the game that was at the Blanchflower. 1,800 people. So you can see, and on Saturday it happened as well because of Glentoran playing on Friday night. That left a lot of Glentoran, a lot of fans in East Belfast went down to the Blanchflower Stadium. And Bangor brought a very good support because they've always had that core element, and they will, in my view, be up next season. And it'll be a matter for them to look at it and say maybe take the first season back when they do get back. Let's consolidate. But they are, when I think to the mid-90s, Bangor, the European nights they had there, and the long-suffering Bangor supporters that came down, and they won a tight game on Saturday. Fair play to them.
People talk about sleeping giants and that Derry, could they be the biggest team in Ireland and all that. Bangor is a true Irish League sleeping giant. They are a town that is significant in the amount of fans that they have there. Their big problem is that Linfield have somewhat, and other clubs, let's say, has sucked up a lot of their potential fans over the past 2 decades. But this team is exciting, it's thrilling. There's this young fan base, I saw it a few times last season, who are really finding their identity with this Bangor team. The crowds are, even at the minute, they're top flight size crowds, and that's without the likes of a Linfield or Glentoran or whoever coming down. And I think a lot of teams are excited and looking forward to the potential, the prospect of Bangor coming in. I'll remind you of that when they're getting a cheeky win at home against you all. But they, if they can get this across the line early doors, it will help this team massively, because then when other teams at the bottom of the league are they're worrying still come the end of April, are we going to be a top flight team or not? Bangor could know come February, we're going to be playing top flight football no matter what, and that could really aid them in their pursuit of getting a squad that could stay up next term.
Yeah, interesting, Peter. I mean, the game at the Blanchflower Stadium on Saturday was a perfect example for Harland and Wood Welders of where they could be if they were to get into the championship, because Bangor must have brought about 600-700. I know it's only up the road, but every time you look at, could you imagine Glentoran against the Welders? Linfield coming over. Blanchflower Stadium is fantastic, fit for purpose. Cliftonville, they will be getting that every other week. And that is why Dundela, I don't know whether they've released, Dundela have agreed, I got an inkling of it, that they are going, if they were to be promoted ever, Inver Park is not going to be fit for purpose. Whether they go to the Oval for their home games or go to the Blanchflower Stadium if they get up, you're guaranteed that at least, if they're not clashing with Glentoran, Linfield's coming to play Dundela or the Welders, 1,500, 2,000. That's big money coming into a club. And Bangor are there, but watch the second place battle, because I think East Belfast could be getting maybe a crack at a second Premier League side, and it would be very exciting.
Duns on 28, they're second. Limavady, as you said, also on 28, they're third. 2 goal difference separates them. Welders then on 26, they've played 1 game less. Anna, always tricky, always seems to be sticking around. They need to get on a run. They're in 5th on 25, so they're within a win of second. And even Ards are exactly the same, 17 games played, 25 points. Armagh City, they've come up and stuck around. They've earned their spurs pretty well. They're on 24 points. So
there's a guy who plays for Armagh. He's a joy to watch. Igor Kotowski. Rakowski, that's the guy. And I just, every time on a Saturday, I'm reading out sort of the results. His name is there on the score sheet. Don't be surprised if somebody's sniffing about him during the transfer window, because Armagh are aside. If they're offered money, that's money coming into the club. I was down 2 weeks ago. But hey, I just think he's a joy to watch. And he could have had a hat-trick that day against the Welders, but he would make a nice addition to some Premiership club to fill a gap up front.
There is some exciting, particularly young strikers in this championship. We all know about Michael McClellan, 31, Matthew Ferguson, 29. They've got 14 goals each for the Duns and Bangor. But outside of them, Ben Arthurs, there was much talk he could be moving up. He dedicated himself to Bangor, 26. He's been doing it for a couple of years. Young Daniel Barker, he's emerged, 20. Ballinamallard, 9 goals. But Ballinamallard have secured his future there. You talk about Igor Rakowski, 20 years old, 9 goals. Tiernan O'Connor, you and I have talked about him on this podcast before. 22, 9 goals. Brian Healy, ex-Newry player. Always, if Ballyclare are doing
Oh,
something,
for
it's
Ballyclare. Oh,
always.
Healy hat trick. And when I'm doing that week in, week out, Peter, there's players. Some of the goals I've seen that are out of the top drawer. Eamon Scannell for Ards does not score a goal every other Saturday that's not from the halfway line. Um, Brian, there's a guy playing for John Butcher. He's playing for Limavady. He's only about 17, 18. My goodness, what a talent he is. And it's great to see because I know these players, if they do come in and somebody takes them, they seem to have that ability. The guy for Ballinamallard you mentioned, Barker. I watched them when they destroyed Bangor. That boy was just full of running and full of ambition and full of skill, and it was a joy to watch. But yeah, I said about the championship, there was a game earlier on the season, Newry 4, Bangor 5.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you pay £8 in to see that? And I think a lot of people, the game on Saturday between the Welders and Bangor was very niggly. And there was a lot of tension because effectively the win for Bangor, more or less, the Welders are now out of the equation, in my view, for the league. The league's out of the equation. But hey, it's a joy. And some of the goals you're seeing, you're scratching your heads because I would refer people to these websites for YouTube that the clubs do. Some of them are absolutely fantastic. And I love it when a player would does take that little step up to the Premiership, and I go, yeah, I've seen him before you. That's the joy. I could have told you that. In fact, I should get a job as a scout in the Championship.
I agree. Maybe that's what this is what all these people are listening to this podcast for. Going, what little joy is what little nugget of information is Barry Flynn going to unlock the next striker? So you've pinned your colours to the mast. You'll be claiming Igor Rakowski when he's scoring a hat trick for Linfield in the Irish Cup final. But we'll look ahead because they've got
and he'll be being interviewed on the pitch, and it'll probably be me interviewing him. And he says, Barry, it's you. You're the one was speaking to Peter, and you got my name out there, and I owe it all to you. From Home Park in Armagh to Windsor Park. Yeah. Portadown, you could do a job at Portadown. You never know.
Never know. We'll go to these games. You mentioned Linfield and Portadown this weekend. I think it's the game of the weekend over at Windsor Park. A repeat of the League Cup final last term, well, particularly on Portadown's side of things, very different side. I agree with your sentiment early on. This is a team you don't want to face right now. Linfield, they'll play with no fear. Linfield will not want the likes of Ubacan and UKEC and even Mays running at them. McCartan's back for this side. I think they're without Lee Chapman at right back, and Gary Thompson, I believe people say, got a yellow card. That's a big miss. Gary Thompson really playing some great football for them. So perhaps those weak spots at right back and centre midfield, that will be Portadown's undoing. But Linfield will want to score a goal early and maybe double that. I still think Linfield will shine through here 2-1, but this could be a very interesting game at 3 p.m. on Saturday.
Yeah, if Linfield don't score early, I think they're a team that thrives on momentum. If they don't score early, and it's been a few occasions this season, okay, Linfield did a couple of weeks back, they scored in the 93rd minute to win a game, but it was backs to the wall. The Portadown side, you mentioned Ryan Mays. He will relish going to Windsor Park. He's that type of player. They come off that pitch on Saturday feeling 8 foot tall, each of those players. Linfield at Windsor Park, yeah, that's the game of the week in my view. Interesting. Oh, if I was to be a gambling man, I mean, I wouldn't be amiss at putting £5 on an away win there. Just really to blow Portadown really out of the water. And Niall, shrewd as he is, God, I might ask Desi, can I go and watch that game? That'd be great. It's tantalising, Peter.
I'm gonna say 2-1 Blues. You were talking about Niall Curry. You know, he had that great quote about how he had never won at the Oval with his Portadown side. The way this season is going, I don't know if he's ever won at Windsor Park in a game against Linfield in the league. But
it'd be interesting to see the Portadown crowd go down there. And I was noticing on the Twitter today, there's a couple of buses advertising. They'll take, we're heading off to Windsor. We'll take walk-ups. The feel-good factor is a fantastic thing. Um,
I
it's a fantastic thing, and it's tantalizing, Peter, and it's going to be very good, I think, in my view.
if they bring that atmosphere I heard on Saturday, it really add to it. You know, getting a bit of shine from a lot of different quarters. Excellent game there. Elsewhere, you see Ballymena against Carrick. I mean, Ballymena are kind of in this moment of trying to get back on track. Carrick Rangers are this very tricky team to break down, and that's somewhat the thing that Ballymena aren't able to do. I fancy Carrick to win this 2-0, mainly because they have the goal scorers and they have that big meaty back line that Ballymena will struggle. Perhaps Ballymena will get a wee penalty or get some sort of set piece goal. That was the key to their success earlier on. But matchups makes fights. Don't think this is a great matchup for Ballymena, even though it's at home.
It's like the Ballymena to me are like the famous Blackadder quote, and they were talking about. I think it was the First World War. He says it started badly, it got worse, and the end isn't worth talking about. Well, it started badly for Ballymena, and then it got better, and then it's gone sort of mediocre. It's all about momentum. Stephen Baxter knows that they need to bounce back. You've got Ballymena coming there. Have they, has their season, that high point? They will need to sort of, change gear and re-go. But I think you're right. I think Carrick have a lot more to prove. They will see Ballymena as, inverted commas, takeable. And yeah, Baxter's know-how might sort of see them through there, or else a draw, in my view.
Cruise against the Swifts at Seaview. This could be an interesting game played in the channels. Who can win that battle in there? You've got players who will happily take on opposition defenders. A tricky one to call. Commonly, Dungannon are far better at home than they are away. You got to think that Crusaders are somewhat on a decent nick of form after going away to Coleraine. A 2-2 draw, it's hard to really slice these two.
Yeah, I mean, Dungannon play on the 4G pitch now, and it used to be, I always thought there was an advantage for teams playing on grass, an advantage for Crusaders going there. Crusaders played in a certain manner, they like to pass it. If things got difficult, it was then in the last 20 minutes, it was a case of, throw Owens on and throw the ball into the box. And it was like methodical the way it was done. If plan A didn't work, plan B was to go long. Rodney knows the challenge that Crusaders will pose. They got a good result yesterday. They're two teams that are, punching, well, Dungannon's punching above their weight. They need to consolidate that good form by going up there. But it's such a topsy-turvy league. If Crusaders won 2-0, you wouldn't sort of blink an eyelid. But if Dungannon came away with a 2-1 victory, you still wouldn't bat an eyelid. That's why we report and people watch and players play and managers manage. It's the unknowns out there. But personally, I would be of the view that Dungannon are a different animal this year. They've proved that they'll go to Seaview. They will not fear anything. They will have their tactics worked out. If they were to get an early goal in that game, Crusaders will come at them. But I still think that they have a different ability this season that may see them home, in my view, at Seaview on Saturday.
Crusaders are currently 7th, but we have this big mush of teams that go from 8th to 2nd, 5 points separate them. Coleraine, the team looking up, Cliftonville are the team on 30 points. And this shows you where Dungannon is. If Dungannon lose that game against the Cruise will jump above them in the table. Other teams will move about, but they'll jump above them based on points and goal difference.
Yeah, it makes a difference, Peter, because at this juncture in many of the season, we've been sitting there going, oh, look, there's a top 6 and a bottom 6. You can see there's a bottom 3 there, Carrick, Glenavon and Loughgall. If they don't sort of change tack, the 3 of those, I mean, you look at it, and I talk about the teams at the bottom, that'll become a league on its own. And that's why Paddy McLaughlin's been brought into Glenavon to avoid that scenario at the end of the season. But those middling, it's like they're all bunching. It's like the Grand National. You've got Linfield ahead going into this and Cliftonville up behind them. And then you've got these clubs, but sort of batching behind them. Any one of them can sort of go on a run for about 3 or 4 games, and it will change the whole complexion of that table. Linfield, if they'd won at the Oval on Saturday, on Friday evening. 38 points is a big statement. But the beauty is that Linfield didn't win, and now you have Cliftonville within, a game at Windsor Park. If they won that, and then that changes the complexion again. Linfield, in my view, are there to be caught, and any one of those teams in the mid to late 20s can get on a run, and 3 or 4 wins in a row will completely send them up the table. Crusaders have the ability to do that. Dungannon Swifts have the ability to do that. So this is why Saturday's game between these two sides, the two managers know there's a lot at stake, because this could really put them into contention. We talk about this Christmas, a lot of games coming over Christmas, and then you're into the Irish Cup. But December's a hard month, and Linfield know that. And that's why the beauty is Portadown going to Linfield on Saturday. And this game between the Swifts, could you imagine if the Swifts came away there with 3 points and Portadown did a job on Linfield? You've got Dungannon Swifts up to 32, 3 points behind Linfield. And I thought the way Linfield were playing, that they would have been further ahead, but it is the inconsistency that is undermining them. And they haven't won the league in a couple of seasons, and anything short of that will be looked upon as a failure. But it's beautiful to see that we have that median in the middle of the table that is just waiting to someone's waiting to come out of that batch and make a challenge at the top. So this is the beauty, and that's why that game at the Seaview on Saturday is very important.
Glenavon host Coleraine, two teams in very different parts of the table, not that far away realistically, but Coleraine just can't. They need a repeat of that Loughgall game, don't they? But Glenavon will maybe go at home. Could this be the time where we finally get a turnaround? This team,
Paddy will get a bounce at some stage, a positive reaction. I'm sure he'll be out tomorrow night explaining what he wants, how he wants the team to play. I mean, he's Coatsy and Colin Coates. It'll take them a couple of weeks to get their head around this, but they know that was a free hit on Saturday against Portadown. Portadown got the result. There's no big loss for the backroom staff or the management of Glenavon, because it was a baptism of fire. This is more of your bread and butter. And being at Moorview Park, Coleraine coming down there, yeah, that is what Paddy is looking to make a statement there. And you may get a half decent crowd there wanting to see how they're going to play in their first, how would you say it, the first real game under Paddy that gives him not a free hit, but where he's going to have an opportunity to put his plan into action. Whereas on Saturday, it was a different scenario completely. So I would love to see Glenavon win, but I'm thinking that team needs major surgery, and Coleraine will have that know-how to go down there and 2-1, could be 3-1 in my view. To Glenavon are just not going to improve overnight. Paddy has a job in his hands, and I think Coleraine could exploit that.
Yeah, it's not a particularly great feeling looking at the likes of McGonigal and Shevlin and the likes coming at your way. So yeah, I'm gonna have to back Coleraine there, but I did it last week and I was bitten. I was bitten on the hand for it. But yes, I'm gonna say 2-0 Coleraine there. Loughgall, Glentoran at Lakeview Park. It's Glentoran are like a side that would just go to Lakeview Park and somehow give Loughgall points that they haven't been getting against anybody else. However, I mean, this should. I know it flips every time you think Glentoran are going to do it. They don't, but this just has to be 2-0, 3-0, and away back up to Belfast, surely.
Yeah, well, I think Linfield showed the template for how to do that: score early, close the game down, and then in the second half, it basically just kicked the ball about. To me, Glentoran will not make a mistake there. Last season, you might have had the crowd breathing down your neck. The situation at Lakeview Park, you could light a cigarette. If you stood on the touchline, the player could light a cigarette. But no, that fear, or that we're just up and we're here to make a statement, I think it's gone. Loughgall, to me, is going to be, it could be 3, could be 4 for Glentoran on Saturday. And I mean that by watching Loughgall against Linfield, they just didn't seem to have the ability to deal with that. And if you get Glentoran playing with a bit of flair, okay, it'll be a heavy pitch, but so's the oval. they're not going to make any mistake, in my view, after last Friday night's result, and that would be the boost that they need to go to the bottom of the table and put on a show, maybe.
Final game of the weekend, Sunday at 2 o'clock. It is being streamed, Inver Park. It's the first big foray into Irish League football for Mr. Rooney. They will be coming back at Larne from Slovenia. We know about the well-reported run of results post their European adventures. It ain't good. And they go into a game where Cliftonville have figured out the Larne formula. Will we see some tricks from Rooney being played out here? We'll have to see. Difficult game, but I think this is a 1-1, maybe 2-1 Cliftonville, I think.
Yeah, it has draw written all over it. Cliftonville are not the finished article by any matter of means. It's a different matter playing Loughgall at Solitude and then playing they are the champions. They will be coming back from Europe. There may be a hangover. All the factors that are at play, Peter, Larne going to Europe, coming back. How do you motivate a side to go out and play Cliftonville? New manager coming in. The expectation on the terraces where Cliftonville are just going to play the way Cliftonville do. They'll play it patient, like two sides sort of matched up to each other. But you'll not get a cigarette packet between them or a cigarette paper. In my view, I think there's a draw written all over that. But if Cliftonville were to come away with a 2-0 win, 2-1 win, I wouldn't be surprised.
I agree. I'm going to go 2-1 Cliftonville, but I agree with these games in particular. We don't know the status of Andy Ryan, how these all players come together. It's just something for Cliftonville to
there will be no new Jerusalem straight away. Somebody used to say that to me in work every time they brought in a new sort of manager or a new sort of structure. He used to go, there will be no new Jerusalem, and you'll be very evident early on. It's like the life of Brian. Mm-hmm. I know you're the Messiah because I have followed that many. I don't think there's a quick fix anywhere, and I don't think the patience is there amongst the supporters. And I just say Manchester United is the biggest example of, Mourinho, whoever comes in, they're always going to be the one to solve this, but they don't get the time to do it. And if Cliftonville were to duff Larne on Sunday, to me, that would be, a perfect storm.
It would be such a welcome to the Irish League moment, wouldn't it? But you say Man United, I say this could be Chelsea, where it changes all the time, but success seems to come out of it. So,
well, let me just say that Gibraltar on a sunny August afternoon is a legacy far removed from Lakeview Park on a rainy, sleety day in March, and Mr. Rooney will sort of find that out very soon.
Well, we'll see if the weather stays good for us this weekend. But, another big one, another good one. Thank you so much, Barry Flynn, for joining me. Lots of great insights there. Where can people find your things? Last time we were chatting to you were chatting about a book that's on the way in the new year. Not a bad time to give that a bit of shine.
Yeah, 6th of February, The Little Book of Irish Football is being released. I might have a wee launch down at Waterstones. George Hamilton, really well stir, RTE, has done the foreword, and he said it's the book we've all been waiting for. And there's a lovely story about Larne, and there's a lovely story about every team in the Irish League and across. Some little anomalies from may well be forgotten. But look, I'll come on again at some time and discuss it.
Absolutely.
And I'll keep the publicity going for that, Peter.
Great.
All right.
Another corker, sir. Until next time, see you soon.
Thank you.
2 manager ones in a row. Are we going to get that magic 3? Hopefully, probably, maybe yay. You know what? I know you guys like those manager ones. He's always come around for it. So, you know what? Don't want some sort of mad change to happen in a dugout somewhere else. But also, I've got listeners to think about. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. If you don't follow the podcast online, what are you doing? Do it on Instagram, Facebook, and or Twitter. It's at Kicking Match on all of those things. You can also subscribe to the podcast if you wish, whatever your player might be, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you go to the main page of Kick a Match, you'll be able to find a wee follow or subscriber button. It's a big fun club you want to be a part of. Also gives you an insight, wee little notification, wee poke whenever I drop a brand new episode. Cheers again. I'll see you again soon. Nice chatting to you on Friday, Jackson. And until next time, tally-ho.